What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the party. Hope you're having a wonderful night or day. Just when I was starting to think about the next random topic to talk about for Chrono Odyssey, they decided to grace us with the long-awaited Dev Notes 4. This one features combat. A lot of exciting stuff in here. There is one thing I wanted to point out in particular that I am kind of concerned on. This is something that was brought up in New World's early stages as well. Let's go ahead and get into it, though. It states that as a follow-up to the last Developer Notes number 3, this fourth installment focuses on specific improvements to combat. The updates they're sharing today represent their path forward in light of the diverse player feedback, as well as deep internal deliberation within the development team. They hope this note conveys their commitment to refining the combat experience. Beyond the highlights listed below, various other improvements are also being implemented across the entire combat system on both macro and micro levels. They also put a small note in here that states that the following details are currently under development and subject to change, as is natural. So the sections we're going over in this article are going to be controls and responsiveness, camera direction and movement, left and right strafe running, attack direction changes, sprint input improvements, and jump landing animations for the first section. The second section is going to be combat impact and feedback. This is the part I want to focus on when I get to it. Hit reactions, guard crush system, and general adjustments. Third section is going to be for consumables, HP recovery, food, and special potions. I did like this part too. The last one's going to be for miscellaneous stuff, for dueling, throwables, and weapon swapping. So we first start off with the controls and responsiveness. Feedback from the first closed beta test indicated that character reactions, including movements, jumping, and combat, felt sluggish relative to player key inputs. They've implemented the following changes to provide a more fluid and intuitive experience. So the video they show starts off by showcasing the camera movement directions. Before, the character's movement was based on where the camera was facing, but they've now changed it to where characters can now move freely, including the opposite direction. And I think this is a great change. It looks great, and it's also going to tie into the third thing they showcased in this video. But the second thing was before characters couldn't sprint while locked onto a target, and now characters can sprint while locked onto an enemy. So we can see that they're making a lot of quality of life changes when it comes to just about every system in the game, like they mentioned before. I think with the rate at which they're working that we may actually see the game launch in that quarter 4 of 2026 this year, but I don't want to hold my breath. We've seen plenty of other games get delayed in the past, so you never really know for sure. Now the third one is the one that I really like in this section. Beforehand, skills were cast based on the camera's direction, but tying into the movement change, skills are now going to be cast in the direction the character's facing. I think this is an amazing change, especially for PvP. I think people are going to really enjoy this because you're not going to have to worry about fighting with your camera while trying to fight the other player at the same time. Overall, I think this is definitely going to provide a more fluid PvP experience, but also on the PvE side, if you have enemies that are going to charge through you or anything like that, you won't have to necessarily worry about having to fight with your camera in that situation as well. Now they also made some forward sprinting improvements, and this one I really like. Before this change was made, the automatic roll animation would occur after you had jumped while sprinting and landed, but they made a change to where your character's motion will stop so that you're able to stick to where you intend to land. You don't have to worry about rolling off of a cliff, rolling off of a platform. It looks much smoother and much more natural. I think that's going to be great for PvP as well. The second section dives into combat impact and feedback. They start this off by saying to increase the tension and density of the combat experience, they've implemented the following: hit reactions, guard crush system, and general adjustments. For the hit reactions, the character hit reactions are now more pronounced when struck by normal attacks. Previously, combat felt very static because only damage numbers were being exchanged. Now enemy hits will visibly shake the character's posture, providing immediate visual and physical feedback that you have taken a hit. As a result, players will rely less on simply trading damage while ignoring monster attacks. Instead, combat will require more active interactions, such as timing carefully or countering after a dodge. Now before I comment on this, I want to talk about the guard crush system too. So they said that they've added a guard crush system and categorized attack intensity levels to ensure that the enemy's presence is palpable through your controls. Going simply beyond blocking an attack, blocking is no longer just a way to nullify damage, but a strategic element where you must manage your character's position and stamina based on the strength of the incoming strike. The guard crush is described as being a thing where blocking attacks will consume stamina, and if your stamina drops to 0, a guard crush occurs and leaves you defenseless. Additionally, they added an effect where your block immediately breaks regardless of stamina if you are hit from the side or the rear. The attack intensity level section states that when a guard crush occurs, different animations will ensue depending on whether the enemy uses light or heavy attacks. Stronger attacks will result in a more significant guard crush motion that pushes the character further back. Since these larger animations require more time to recover and re-enter the fight, players must make tactical decisions such as dodging heavy attacks or carefully monitoring the remaining stamina. Now let's wind things back here. So let's go back to hit reactions. So they stated that character hit reactions are now going to be more pronounced. If you're looking at the video itself, it reminds me a lot of when New World's stagger system had a complete overhaul change, and essentially enemies were able to stagger us on hitting these attacks, but we couldn't stagger them, at least not easily. Now I remember in Chrono Odyssey's combat system that we do have the ability to pop parries, and they'll usually present an opportunity to stagger enemies. I don't remember if it works for like all the bosses and stuff, but it definitely works for like the trash mobs. Now I see a lot of potential here for us ending up in the same position that New World was in during that time, because if I recall correctly, I think there were people that were fine with that change, but there was also people like myself that just did not like it, didn't feel like it fit. Back during that time, a big reason for the stagger change was because the hatchet weapon was very overpowered in like the preview. I think it was the preview, not the closed beta. And so what happened was in PvP, because of the hatchet's very fast basic attacks, people were just stagger locking everybody in PvP. But at the time, there were some important considerations and alternatives that people presented that weren't really ever addressed. First thing was, back then there was a severe lack of weapons. We didn't have the rapier. The rapier probably would have stopped the hatchet in its tracks with the counter that it had. Not to mention, they could have implemented diminishing returns on the stagger when it comes to putting the stagger on mobs and players, and I don't think they really accounted for what happens when you have a swarm of mobs coming at you and you're getting attacked by them all at once. Now, if I remember correctly, I remember in one of the Chrono Gates especially that there were several trash mobs that spawned during the boss fight. I see that boss fight alone as being a huge problem if you're able to get staggered by all these different trash mobs, including the boss as well, but you're incapable of staggering them in return. I think the part that I liked about the Chrono Odyssey combat system was the fact that the mobs didn't stagger you in the way that you couldn't stagger them. If we could stagger the mobs in the same way they could stagger us, I don't think I'd have a problem with it, but in the current way that they changed it, I do see the potential for problems the same way that New World had. Now, the general adjustment section is next, and actually this may be the solution that they're looking for when it comes to this, but I did want to mention that past part just in case. But they state that knockback durations have been reduced to maintain combat flow after interruption and to minimize exposure to unintended follow-up attacks. Additionally, total crowd control immunity has been removed from several powerful monsters and replaced with conditional systems. This allows players to strategically use crowd control skills to forcibly interrupt enemy patterns. In the video, we see a little bit of this take shape, the before and after, and I think overall looking at this now, this does kind of act as its own solution. Another thing that was mentioned as a possible solution to the stagger change in New World's early phases is having skills that you can execute which give you stagger immunity temporarily. And I think in this game, the sword and shield weapon may already have that, so that might actually be fine just on its own. I'm looking forward to seeing how these changes all play out though. The next section was consumables, so the overlapping effect of potions and food have been restructured to better define their special purpose. HP potions no longer function as individual consumable items, instead they are now a permanent rechargeable system. Potion usage is mapped to a dedicated key, freeing up consumable slots. Your potions also auto-refill upon death in instance content, removing the need to return to town for crafting or replenishing supplies. Food now functions as long-term buffs, like for stats, movement increases, etc., rather than immediate healing. I think both of these changes are really nice, especially the fact that we won't have to worry about going back to town to restock our potions. Thank goodness for that. That was actually something I did find annoying on occasion in Where Winds Meet, so that's going to be nice to see for sure. Special potions have also been added that provide powerful effects over very short durations. These are intended to be used at critical moments to turn the tide of battle. I'm hoping that will mean that alchemists are going to be able to make a lot of money off that. Now for the last section, we have miscellaneous. For dueling, the duels have been improved through the addition of a visible boundary and a much more intuitive victory and defeat signage. So in the before picture, we can kind of see there's no real indicator on like where the dueling area kind of ends. In the after portion, you can see it very visibly on the ground. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how that plays out too. For the throwables, a visual trajectory arc was added for aiming throwable objects to prevent items from hitting unintended obstacles. So for all you barrel lovers out there, no, I'm just kidding, that was actually removed, but it's really nice to see this. And for weapon swapping, the visual effects for weapon swapping have been enhanced, allowing players to track changes more easily during intense combat. And that one has me really curious. I was actually hoping that they would do a video for that, because that sounds like you're going to be able to see your character seamlessly put the weapon away on your back or in the holster and then grab the other one in a very smooth transition. I'm looking forward to that too. And the last section states that the latter half of 2025 was quite meaningful for the Chrono Odyssey team as they engaged in many intense discussions and carefully considered the game's direction. Fueled by our feedback, they are grateful for this journey and remain dedicated to perfecting the game for its full release. Moving forward, they plan to share more of their journey through various channels and updates, and they hope that we will continue to join them in the days to come. So I think overall that was a really solid update. I did have concerns in the beginning portion when it came to the combat, but actually after reading that general adjustments section, I think it's possible we may actually be okay on that. I think they may have already actually accounted for that and done a better job of solving the Stagger problem than New World had tried to in the beginning. So I am looking forward to that. I do have a lot of confidence in these devs. They seem to have been working their butts off and have been providing a lot of communication for people. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we're still going to be getting that early 2026 CBT2 and then released later this year, although I wouldn't be surprised if it got delayed till January 2027, but CBT2 is all I care about for the time being. So have a good one, folks. Thanks so much for watching, and farewell.